Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell, we will be talking about a dangerous storm system that is currently evolving across the United States. It is actually a very large system. If you look closely on this map, where my cursor is, that's really where the system is centered. However, because of the dynamics that the system is kind of presenting for itself, it's producing a moderate risk of severe thunderstorms today, all the way across Indiana, Illinois, very far from the actual center of the storm. And I want to show you on Monday, so today, what the threat is. Notice yesterday they just had a slight, they did not even have an enhanced at this time of the year yesterday, or this time of the day yesterday. So yes, the situation quickly escalated into a pretty dangerous situation. I will be going over the biggest threat here and the current radar, and I do want to show you a few webcams and just kind of what's to come and what areas are at greatest risk and the coming days, as this system is far from being over with. Before we get into this, however, if you guys are new to this channel, obviously consider checking out the channel first, watching the video, and if you do enjoy it towards the end, you can subscribe and like. It helps out a lot. Otherwise, if you have any comments, concerns, leave them down below. I read all of them. I will do my best to answer them. Let's start talking about this. So first off, let's take a look at this. So categorical risk. This is a kind of 1 out of 5 scale that the Storm Prediction Center issues for every single day of the year regarding thunderstorms and their severity. So notice anywhere in that light green, that is just a regular old thunderstorm risk, and you can see it's a very large area. Now, in that darker green, that's marginal. So a slight risk, I shouldn't say slight because that's that's the next criteria. Marginal is even less than, I guess, a slight risk. It's a marginal risk for severe weather. Not very big. Slight, it's there, right? Like the word slight, it's not too bad. It's definitely something you have to watch out for. Enhanced means that, well, it's getting there. It's a pretty good chance you will see some severe storms. Again, not thunderstorms, severe storms, which is pretty much a thunderstorm on steroids in terms of all its criteria: wind, hail, rain, and tornadoes. And of course, once you get towards that red, moderate, that's a considerable threat that should be taken very seriously, as it's issued over one given area. Rarely, less than once a year, probably for sure. In terms of the whole United States, they issue this probably once or twice every given month. And the high is just something, it's a nightmare. You don't want to see that. That's just scary. That is just very bad. So today there is a moderate. It is thankfully a smaller area, though there are some pretty large cities. Fort Wayne, South Bend, formidable cities. Thankfully it's not as far north as Detroit, or as far east or west as Chicago, or as far south as Columbus. But really anywhere even in the enhanced is a risk, and those cities are massive: Chicago, Columbus, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Toledo, just south of Detroit, but you could pretty much count that in. Biggest threat is not the tornadoes, though you could see that there is a formidable, I don't know how to say that word. There's a decent threat for them. 5% may not seem like a lot, but for a tornado threat, it's, definitely something that you want to keep an eye on for. Again, it's not their main point of why they issued the moderate. The biggest threat for today is the wind, and I'll show you why in just a second, but you can see 45, that's pretty much as high as it goes. There's just one other criteria here. And then there's hail, which also isn't too high, though honestly, I do think that it's a bit higher than what they're showing here, especially what we're seeing on the radar. So let me now show you the radar. I'm zooming in on this cell right here, because this is what we have going on across Wisconsin now. We have this giant thunderstorm. It's just one single storm, and it did have a hail core. It did cause a golf ball sized hail across the city of, where was this? I saw it earlier, across Dousman. Here it caused the golf ball sized hail. Waukesha was seeing, I don't think they really saw hail because the hail core weakened, but they did see definitely heavy rain, and it's currently over Milwaukee. I do have some webcams pulled up. I was watching earlier Waukesha get slammed by the rain. Earlier there was, sorry about that, Racine is somewhere on here because there's many webcams here, and yes, you could see there's the cloud. It's raining, it's shaking, it's windy. I do believe there was some rain, but Racing just got kind of sideswiped by it. It didn't get the brunt of it. You can see here it's all wet, the streets. Let me see if I can find a webcam where it's still pouring. Martin Luther King Drive. You can still see it's raining, though it seems as the worst is now passing off to the city right there and over Lake Michigan. As this radar is from 440, it's 447, so it's leaving the Milwaukee area. But yes, that's a big thunderstorm. I mean, that's a large storm. And that is the threat. So this is where things could get significant. Do note that we do have some storms across Indiana, Ohio. That's not the main severe weather threat. So if you already got blasted across Indiana today, say Fort Wayne, you did get a little thunderstorm there. That's not the main severe weather. That honestly is pretty laughable compared to what the threat could be. And that stems from right here. As this cell moves further eastward, south and eastward, what we could get from this storm is a developing line of storms on the kind of on the southwest side. So we do have currently a warm front that is set up somewhere across southwestern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and Michigan, and this is obviously anywhere south of this is very warm air, humid air, more humid than the National Weather Service was predicting. I was reading the forecast discussion, which is why they went from a slight risk today, which was initially thought that's how big the threat would be, but now it's a moderate, which is a big jump. Obviously not something the National Weather Service or the Storm Prediction Center likes doing, but it got a lot warmer, a lot more humid, and what they think will happen as this thing interacts with the warm front, which again, the warm front is still constantly moving towards the north. This is a very hard to predict situation, even just a few hours out ahead of this threat. They think as this system slides, the storm and I guess this whole convective system that was a bit more powerful, now it's weakening out across Wisconsin, it was more powerful. As this thing drags down to the south and east, there could be a line that kind of develops alongside of this. Now, whether or not this will clip Chicago, Illinois, or will it wait all the way into Indiana and Michigan, or maybe even further over here, wherever it does develop, it will be strong, it will be powerful, but that's kind of the big question. Where does this kind of start developing these storms? As of now, if you live across western Illinois and you want rain, it doesn't look too good. This thing is a bit further off to the east than you would want for good storm development, and there isn't really any development going on right now, other than the fact that the storm itself is maintaining, it's not weakening. I do think as it goes over the lake, hits into Michigan, there could be some storms starting to erupt here, and we will have to see. As again, these are very hard to predict situations. You can see we do have some activity over here. Maybe this will eventually evolve into a storm. Again, these situations are again hard to predict. I want to drive that home, as you don't, just because you don't see anything on the radar. You live in Elkhart, right? You have a moderate. Oh, there's nothing on the radar. There's this big storm over here. Be careful, because you may be watching this guy, but there might be more popping up towards the south and east. So this is definitely a situation where it's just a dangerous one. And let me show you the National Weather Service map. Yes, you look at this and it's an absolute, it's as close as you can get to chaos on the National Weather Service map. You have winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories in the northwest, flood warnings, flood advisories, wind warnings. You have frost advisories, freeze warnings, and then just widespread heat advisories, extreme heat warnings for large metros like Minneapolis, Columbus, into portions of southern Illinois, including St. Louis. Let's click on the Minneapolis area. I'm curious, honestly, myself, how hot it will get here. Yeah, close to 100. Very similar to what Chicago will be having, Indiana, most of Ohio. Let's click on Indy. I want to check obviously there's a storm threat today, but look at that, 98. I wouldn't be surprised if there are triple digits recorded at least in at least one of those cities, Indy, Chicago, or Minneapolis. I think there will be, to be honest, in the next 2 days. This thing is looking very potent, this heat dome, and that's why these storms are as severe as they are. They have a lot of things to work with, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So again, the wind is the highest threat, and you could see that it is further off into Indiana, northern Indiana, northwestern Ohio, and southern Michigan. I do want to show you now what the what the models think will be occurring. So let's go to the HRRR model. I do want to say I like using this model for severe weather, but it has not done a really good job of forecasting this. Yesterday I was looking at this, and it's pretty much gotten a lot of things wrong with this, but let's see what it does nonetheless, as it's still better than looking at a GFS model, as that one is not really high precision. But notice 5 p.m. this is what it thinks the radar will look like. Not completely inaccurate, right? It does have this cluster up here, but it's completely avoiding any convection across Wisconsin, and in reality there is convection there. So 6 p.m., 7 p.m., still nothing. I do think the radar will be a lot more lively than what the HRRR model shows at this point. I do want to note there will be some storms erupting across the Dakotas, both north and south, and eventually into southern Canada. That could evolve into some sort of a severe weather threat, there is a slight risk here also for severe weather. Notice that the HRRR finally does start developing storms around 8 p.m. Eastern and Central Time. This is, again, I think a bit too late in the day. I think it will be earlier, and I do think that it may be a bit further towards the south and east, though again, it's hard to predict. But notice that wherever it does and whenever it does produce them, the HRRR model, it produces them vigorously, very powerful storms. And notice, if this were to occur, this would be a bit further towards the north and east from where the National Weather Service thinks the biggest threat will be. Storm Prediction Center thinks the worst will be here. I would much rather think that they are correct than what the HRRR model shows, which again, you know, the HRRR model may have some sort of a tendency to being more correct, meaning that maybe it's a bit further north than what the Storm Prediction Center thinks, but I do not think it will be this far north, the whole center of this. Regardless, if it is further north, that doesn't change the message. You can see these storms are up, they're big, and there's many of them, so several areas could get several over a good period of time tonight and into the evening. Flooding, obviously hail, obviously wind, and you can see that spreads into Pennsylvania, Ohio, and whatnot. Do note that across the Dakotas, really the threat also takes off tonight into the evening hours. We see those storms pop up into large clusters, large cells. Hail, obviously, probably being the biggest threat, though some damaging winds as well. I do want to show you the precipitation outlook again. This isn't really to predict for certain, you know, for I guess any given area. I just want to show you that wherever this does occur, you know, where you have several storms on top of each other, you could get up to a quick 2 inches of rain. The precipitable water atmospheric table, meaning kind of how much, I guess, moisture there is very anomalously high for this time of the year. The atmosphere is saturated, it's loaded, and do note that that's why it's allowing for such, I mean, that is a big cell. I mean, it's almost perfect. It's like a perfect circle. It's kind of almost satisfying to look at it on the radar. It is, unfortunately, though, producing a bit of severe weather, something that we wouldn't really want to see. But do note that I'm looking at this convection right here developing across southeastern Wisconsin. I'm curious to see whether or not that actually, you know, maybe if they were to start develop the storms, it would be around this time frame. So I may be looking at this later and being like, I made the video right when it was starting to develop. Regardless, you know, that's this is the biggest kind of threat area. Though I would say that based on the recent model trends and what the National Weather Service is saying, I think, you know, for those that live in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, you might get spared from the worst. Obviously, other than where that cell passed through across Milwaukee, I don't know if there was hail with it. I know that earlier I had a track record of hail, but it did seem like that core was weakening. Let's take a look at some global models. The European had a pretty good handle of this, if I recall, a few days ago. So notice this is what it showed today at 10. That's not really what happened. So, you know, again, that's already kind of discrediting it. This is what it thought it looked at 1 p.m., now at 4 p.m., so not completely off, but I mean, not really accurate either. And this is by 7, this is by 10, and it does show a severe weather threat, though again, much further towards the north than what the Storm Prediction Center thinks, similar to the HRRR model, which again, is a bit odd that they're all going so far to the north. Definitely you know, again, it's such a situation, I take the Storm Prediction Center's, you know, views over the models any day. So this is the FV3 high res. It tends to do this where it kind of over exaggerates a storm cell. This did occur earlier on. You could see on the radar. I could show you there was rain across Wisconsin. It just wasn't as potent. You can see right there. But I want to show you this model because it gives us a good look at what could happen. So again, think of this as being like that one cell we're seeing right now across Wisconsin. Again, it's overdone here, and it's a bit earlier than what they're expecting. But what the Storm Prediction Center thinks could happen is something similar, where you have this line, and you can see kind of on a eastern or western flank of it, we see development continuing and a gradual southeastern plunge. And this could again produce a pretty big wind threat and of course hail threat with any of those storms, especially when they're initially firing up. And you can see that takes more of a track that the Storm Prediction Center favors. And in terms of the total accumulated precip, again, with any of these, there could be some pretty significant rainfall. I mean, I'm sure the areas that got hit by that big cell, that big red one right there, in the past few minutes across Wisconsin probably picked up easily. In some areas, probably close to an inch of rain, which, you know, did cause probably some ponding, though not enough to probably produce mass flooding. But again, It's very interesting as how the Storm Prediction Center views this. If they were to go completely off the models, they would probably put this further north, but again, they're not, because it's not all about the models. So that is that. I do want to show you the webcams. Maybe we could still see some, especially across racing, as that's where the last of this kind of the cell moved away. Yeah, you can see it's moving off onto the shore now. They got spared from the worst of the rain. Further north though, and further west, you can see these areas got soaked, and you can still see the water, the puddles shining through the sunlight right there, and the sun poking in between the clouds there. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's basically it. I wanted to show you that. I wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of this threat, as yesterday there was just a slight. I still mentioned it. Big storm is coming. That's why I titled it, and it seemed to pay off, as today the moderate is issued, and it does seem like even into the next few days there could be some overperformance, because as I mentioned, today's not the last day. So let's just go off the GFS again. Not the most accurate model for this, but I still think it has the best handle out of any model I could show you, really. So note again, this is what it shows today, that threat, right? But let's go into tomorrow. So tomorrow, pretty quiet. There will be some activity across Canada. Notice pretty widespread rain, showers, maybe some snow in the higher mountains, which is why there's winter storm warnings up there. Well, notice by late in the evening and into the overnight, we have a cold front that develops. Some nasty storms could be occurring across Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Something to watch for. There is a slight here issue. I would not be surprised if there's an enhanced given for Tuesday. Notice Wednesday we see that cold front continue. It's a bit weak, but it continues sagging towards the south and east. And on late Wednesday into Thursday, we see this redevelop across Wisconsin, Michigan, potentially Illinois, and drag towards the east. Now let's go back to an older model one, as the recent one I was just showing you is just processing, and then you can see it does bring some showers and activity towards the northeast. Though it doesn't look too impressive. Definitely something we'll have to watch for. And in the long range, obviously the activity continues. You could see more big storms, potentially more heat. Though I do want to say that after the initial heat wave we're seeing now, there will be a bit of a cooler period this upcoming weekend. But you can see that the activity is stereotypical, of summer. We just have these kind of chaotic weather patterns occurring. And do note, as I mentioned yesterday, the monsoons could be starting up across the southwest, which could be delivering quite a bit of rain there. So that's something to watch for sure. Regarding the heat, let me show you the NAM 12KM model, and let me show you the 2-meter temperature shaded. So this is kind of the next 2 days. I want to show you how hot it can get. Let me play this out again. So this was today, so it got pretty hot across much of the south, but tomorrow will be the worst day, I think, for areas that are a bit further towards the north, and really further south. You can see the heat really expands here, probably some triple digits. I think the NAM may be underplaying some of this, and then it cools off for the night. Again, it almost cools off to the average daytime high for this time of the year, even though it's the night. And then you can see Wednesday, another blistering hot day for many areas, though it is starting to cool off across the northern plains here. And then the heat kind of shifts a bit further towards the south on Thursday, and potentially maybe affects more of the northeast as we get in towards the weekend, while the cool off begins across further west. So that is that. You can see the GFS also showing those ridiculously hot temperatures. Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday the worst, at least for the Midwest. The south, though, you stay in this heat for quite a longer time period. Let's take a look at the European. So again, you can see Friday, pretty warm, getting warmer for the northeast. But we do, as I mentioned yesterday, have that little cool off for the weekend. So notice Saturday, it's hot for many areas across the plains, but cooler for the Midwest and northeast. But then this heat eventually does spill in, and this time, potentially, look at that. Look at some of these temperatures that they're showing here. Widespread hundreds across the Carolinas, 110. That would be some sort of a record, I do believe, as that seems rather extreme. Let's take a look at the anomaly. So this shows us how above normal or below normal the temperature will be. Notice it's cooler across the northwest while this is occurring, which is why there's winter storm warnings up there in the higher elevations. But it's progressive, right? So the heat doesn't stay over a certain area for too awfully long, other than, I guess, the south. Notice that the European, even though it does introduce a cool wave across certain areas, it's still a more heat-oriented pattern, heat-dominant pattern. And look towards the southeast here in the long range, it does start showing this ridiculous anomaly, which brought those hundreds there, which hopefully doesn't happen, but we'll have to be prepared for that, as this environment is, let's just say, chaotic to say the least. So there we are. There we have it. Again, guys, keep an eye on this. Notice that we do have some cells developing there. I don't know if that's the start of these storms starting to fire up potentially. I would not be surprised. But for now, that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned to your local National Weather Service, right? Just type in weather.gov. If you have any sort of big warning, you will get an alert on your phone. The Chicago area, obviously, if you don't see any storms by like 9-10, you're probably probably good. If you're across southeastern Wisconsin, the biggest threat is kind of really occurring now. Again, we did have that big storm pass through. We're seeing some convection develop, and across into Indiana and Michigan, the threats further later tonight, and they do have a moderate risk, which is pretty darn high, and something that doesn't happen even on a monthly or even annual basis over this area. But you can see 4 out of 5. That's pretty high. Damaging wind is the main threat, but large hail, flooding, and isolated tornadoes are also possible. And they're, again, telling you, monitor the situation because it could be pretty dangerous. So that is that. And yeah, they're warning you about lightning, which this is a pretty good way to send it home. One strike and you're out. Yeah, you can see the heat indices for much of the Midwest will look similar to what I'm showing you here. 108, 110, right? I mean, you saw Twin Cities are under heat warnings, all the way into Oklahoma, the South, the Deep South, the Carolinas here. Let's click on Raleigh. Again, I'm trying to get as many areas as possible under this, and it's short, thankfully, but it's 101, a lot of humidity as well in that, so that's going to make it much worse. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya.